My name is Ninth Wonder, and I'm about to interview the great Bob James.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, sir. You and I have something in common. Your teacher told you that you had perfect pitch when you were a kid.
Yes.
By the time I got to the 7th grade, my band teacher told me the same thing, that I had perfect pitch. Because I played a lot of things by ear in the mid 80s, early 90s, is where I got introduced to you in the most unconventional of ways, reading the credits to Peter Piper by Run DMC. When I saw that, I saw contained samples of Take Me to the Mardi Gras, performed by Bob James. How did you feel about hip hop when we first started to sample your music?
Well, I guess I could say I've been through a lot of variations of feelings about it.
Right.
When I first began to discover it, it was not exactly a positive thing, because the times that I found out that my music had been sampled, it was not licensed.
Right.
There was a recording by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince that sampled my song Westchester Lady. And when I listened to it, I thought, wow, what the heck is going on? Because it's just, my record just played and they were rapping over the top of it.
Right.
So it was weird. And I didn't know what to think about it, because it was not really a collaboration. They hadn't asked me, they hadn't gotten any kind of permission, so there was no back and forth thing at that time. But I'm happy to say many, many years later, I've met DJ Jazzy Jeff, and we had a great conversation, and now we're thinking about, many, many years later, actually collaborating, when it's not just a sample thing where I'm not part of it, you know. So I have always tried to respect the idea of creativity, no matter how unpredictable it is. But at the same time, throughout a pretty long career, I've learned that one of the most, if not the most powerful thing that we have as creative people is copyrights. Being able to keep it under our control and take advantage of it, because it's our livelihood, it's our life's work. And that's what I fought the hardest for, to be fair and acknowledge when there's a combined creativity going on. It's so important that all of that is organized in a way that is fair and legal and appropriate. And I think that's actually one of the great things that I am learning about Tracklib and what they're trying to do.
So you decided to let Tracklib, which is amazing to me still, take your catalog and have people around the world like myself and other young producers that had discovered people like you through a Jazzy Jeff or through the RZA or through so many other producers. You decided to let Tracklib have your catalog to sample. Why?
The timing for me is that I'm exploring sampling myself in a whole different way, so I could understand it. I could understand this idea of why it would be great to have this library of music that could be available, pre-negotiated, simple. And I have tried to fight for that kind of structure for a long time anyway. And I think that's because I've always felt that as long as it was done properly and licensed properly, so that all of the creative artists that are involved in it participate and can profit from it, then from my standpoint, the more the better. And yes, I'm happy to see what can happen with young producers who grab onto some piece of my music that I may not have thought would ever get used again, give it a new life, the same way that it happened with Nautilus.
We created an art form where we found these particular parts of song that we first were putting on turntables, but then at the same time, we turned and started to put them in the beat machines. Did we understand the copyright process at the time? Of course we didn't. I wasn't born until 1975, but it turned into a worldwide phenomenon where a lot of us, myself, Jazzy Jeff, DJ Premier, DJ Pete Rock, Questlove, we have probably up to 50,000 pieces of vinyl from the 1970s alone. And I dare to say that we have your entire collection. Everything from what you did for Taxi to all the way down to Westchester Lady to Tappan Zee to everything. I asked the president of my label, I said, who will we put on the Mount Rushmore of people that we sampled? And first name that came up was James Brown. But then it's a very hard and serious argument that you're probably right behind him. Because just off Nautilus alone, and how many times I've heard Nautilus in so many songs. Thank you for what you've done for our culture, because we stand on the shoulders of you, James Brown, Ahmad Jamal, I mean everybody, Cannonball, Cal Jader, Chick Corea, Shelly Maine. Like, I can go on all day about what hip hop has taught me about jazz, about Dave Grusin, about David Axelrod, like walking encyclopedias of the things that you created.
I just got to say, while you were describing all that, tears were coming up from just the emotion of me still not being able to understand it. As a piano player, when I'm hands-on, when I'm making the music, I understand when it's good or when I do a good job or when the magic happens. But the way this happened for me, the way Nautilus took on this life, or Take Me to Mardi Gras took on a life that was so far away from anything that I was directly involved in, it's like a miracle. And it's amazing to me. I'm, of course, extremely flattered. I'm overwhelmed by it still. Every time I'm talking about it, I still can't believe it, sort of. But even though I love what I do, my field that I fell in love with when I had the opportunity to do it was the recording field. And for about 5 years, I was part of a kind of a unique sound that took place for a bunch of reasons, one of which was their recording engineer, Rudy Van Gelder, who he had a sound of his own that was different from anybody else at the time. And our records just sounded that way. When people started to listen to them, they started calling it the CTI sound. And I know for sure that that was at least one aspect of why Nautilus had a special something that caught your ear and that caught different people's ears, because it was just different. And so as I try to figure it out, to analyze what happened, I think that there was definitely something going on in the 1970s. There was a change in jazz rhythm. That up until the 1970s, it was mostly a kind of swing rhythm with acoustic bass,
right,
and very loose kind of drum grooves that were part of the sound. But then, for whatever reason, rock started to form this kind of hybrid music, jazz rock, they sometimes called it, or whatever. And as a result of it, we were using different musicians. A drummer that was more schooled in rock rhythms than he was in jazz, so the hybrid combination music started to happen, and that was the sound. So by the time, I guess, you and the other rap hip-hop artists were listening to it, maybe in the 1980s, whatever, I thought by that time that people had forgotten about it.
Wow.
Would never. And if I told you the real story about Nautilus, it's crazy, because on that session, nobody really paid much attention to it at all. It was an LP, and as you probably know, we always concentrate on making the best cuts be the outside cuts, the first cut on side A and the first cut on side B, because the grooves are wider. And the sound was better on those cuts because you got more bass, there was more room to master it so that they sounded better. And we would traditionally put the weakest songs on the inside, the last cut on side A or the last cut on side B. So Nautilus on my album was the last cut on side B. And nobody was paying attention to it at all. It wasn't getting any airplay on the radio. I liked Nautilus, you know, it was fun to do, and it was almost like an afterthought because we needed more material. And Creed Taylor said, have you got one more song? And I had the sketch of a little bass line that I wanted Gary King, the bass player, to play. And I didn't think much about it. It was just a groove. And Gary, of course, played it great. And I had Idris Muhammad on drums, who also had a magic kind of New Orleans groove that he always played. And we had fun. We had fun doing it, but in a million years, I never would have expected that that cut would be described the way you are describing it today.
You know, you humming that bass line, do 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 do. When people see this, that will wake up like a million Wu-Tang fans across the globe. Like, you don't understand that the moment in time that you're talking about came 3 minutes into the song, right? So we know what the moment is in the song for us. Like, I DJ a lot online, and at some nights I play just samples. I do it for two reasons. I want them to understand where the music comes from, but I also don't want them to go, if you don't know who a Bob James is, to go research and listen to all the other music that he made. In that song, are there moments in the song for you that are great that you thought that, okay, this is the part? Like, because I want to see if the part you're thinking is the part that we thought.
Well, I guess the real honest answer is no, because I never imagined it as a great song. It was a track that we did on this album that was fun to do.
This is the phenomenon, right? So I'm gonna play. And this is the fun part because it's the waiting game for the part to come up. And I have a loop function on my laptop. So when I first heard that as a 21-year-old kid, the song was called Daytona 500. And now I've heard all parts of this song, and that's easily the best part of the record. Because RZA was known for taking these itty bitty parts of song that he wouldn't even add drums to. Maybe turn the bass up, maybe turn the highs down, and make it into this rough, gritty experience, and then have Ghostface rap on it. I was like, man, like, this is crazy. So, like I said before, you're on Mount Rushmore, man. Like, it's so many, you know, what you did for Ghostface Killer, Caribbean Nights, which ended up being Can't Wait for Redman, Take Me to the Mardi Gras, that ended up being Peter Piper, Tappin' Z, that ended up being Everyday People for Arrested Development, Love Lips with you and Earl Klugh that end up being Last Days for Onyx. It's just, like you said, it's a complete miracle how something you might have thought that was like, okay, it's a B-side of, that's cool, ended up to us becoming so legendary in our culture. Like, these songs are so legendary to us. If you're a producer or if you're a hip-hop aficionado and you listen to these songs, and you don't know where they came from, we outcast them. We're like, Bob James, you know who Bob James is. What? Like, it's kind of like a sin not to know what you've done for us.
Once we make the music, it's out of our hands. And I feel so strongly that what I really love is the process. I like making it. I like the excitement of a new lick comes into my mind. Da 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 da. I don't know where it came from, and I wouldn't even be trying to think about that lick becoming famous or becoming legendary. It happened, and I'm very, very fortunate. And like any of us are that make this music, if you only find one lick like that takes off, you're luckier than a lot of people who don't even find that one, you know. And if you find two or three of them, and Westchester Lady, I found da 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 da. I don't know. And if I try to analyze it, you know, believe me, I have tried. You know, I would love to come up with another one just like da 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 da. You know, da 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 da. You know, whatever. But timing is everything. How it gets interpreted or performed by the musicians who play with you, a million different things have to combine for it to become magic.
Well, I hope that I have done a good job of trying to convey to you what you mean to us, as far as musicians from another time, as far as being a hip hop producer and a vessel for what you've created to the next generation. Because, you know, for us, we just wanted to be bridges to the next generation when done the right way, that people like you and the ones that came before us can live on in so many different ways, live on to the point where, you know, like a 14-year-old will ask me what I use and I'll tell them. And then next thing you know, they go home and they have access to Apple Music with everything on there, right? With your name on it. Do you have any questions for me that I can answer?
Here's one question for you. When can we do something together?
Don't play with me! Oh.
You hear what I'm saying? I think because there was the aspect of this whole, my music being in the hip hop world, the thing I liked the least about it was that I didn't have any part in the creativity.
Right.
Like, my music was there on its own without me being able to go back and forth, you know, and respond. So I'm gonna, since I'm the one that volunteered it, I'm gonna ask you if you're willing to make a track for me. It could be simple, whatever gives you a vibe that you'd like for me to play something on it, and I'll put something over the top of it, and we'll see what happens.
What? Okay. So that will require me to have your phone number.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay.
I want to sample you in reverse, so I get some of what it is that you got going magically, and then I can sample it or scratch it or play the piano over it or whatever the heck I could come up with, and it becomes part of the creative process. I love it.
Well, let's find the magic combination. So on behalf of everybody, from myself to Premier, Pete Rock, the late great Jay Dilla, Madlib, the Beat Miners, Organized Noise, Buck Wild, Swiss Beats, Just Blaze, Kanye West, Diamond D. I mean, everybody down to Metro Boomin to Mike Will Made It, every producer, Clark Kent. I can go on all day about the producers that's in my circle. Questlove. I just want to say thank you for what you've done for us. Something you were doing that you didn't even know you was doing for us. We definitely stand on your shoulders. Your shoulders, Ahmad Jamal's shoulders, James Brown's shoulders, everybody's shoulders from that time that was being innovative and improvising in ways we could never imagine. And so I just want to say thank you on the behalf of all of us and on behalf of hip hop culture in general.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you as well. Thank you for the way you have articulated it so beautifully. You've made my mind spin around and trying to absorb all of this. And the way my mind tends to work is I want to think about what's the next thing. How do we convert this into creativity? How do we come up with something new based upon the energy that you and I are sharing today? And I will definitely look forward to the beat, the break, the scratch, the whatever it is you want to send me, and I'll see what I can come up with.
The Bob James Ninth Wonder EP. It's coming, y'all. I want y'all to wait for it because it's coming. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this time. Thank you. This has been an honor and a pleasure, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Woo! Boy, y'all don't understand. Good God. That was good. What?
Yeah.